Medical school can feel great sometimes. And other times, it can feel like you're walking through a blizzard. And it's not a race, even though your first 2 years may feel like a race in your basic sciences. But it's more like a marathon. It's 5 o'clock in the morning. This is what I've been doing for the last month. And it's been miserable. I've been waking up around 4:40 and going to Lower East Side Manhattan, getting picked up by a friend to take me all the way to Bergen, New Bridge, New Jersey. And a lot of the times, it doesn't matter if you come in first. I actually don't know much about running, but I'm pretty sure it matters who comes in first in a marathon, right? But not everybody's worried about coming in first. Some people are just happy with making it to the finish line. Yeah. I gotta get to my train. I'll be late. And in your first 2 years, especially on your first day, it feels like you're starting from zero. You don't know a thing, and you gotta learn a lot at a very fast pace. Day by day, you start learning things, catching on concepts, you start rereading things, finally getting it. Sometimes you feel like you could teach it back to somebody else. And you repeat that process for the first 2 years. Although, in your first 2 years, it feels like it never ends. And when you get to your second year, you get to the end of it, end of the basic sciences, and you're getting ready to move on to the next step, you start feeling like, hey, I'm starting to get this. I'm starting to make sense of everything they're teaching us. Starting to build one whole cohesive picture in my head. Start feeling like I've mastered this material. And as soon as you're feeling like you're on top of the world, you move on to the next step. And you feel like you don't know anything again. And that sucks. I remember when I was going from my basic sciences to my clinical years, that transition was weird. I started quickly forgetting everything that I was learning for the first 2 years, and I started learning new things. How the hospital runs, the daily routine of a hospital, the interdisciplinary teams, working with nurses, working with residents, working with attendings, working with chief attendings. It almost feels like you're starting over all over again. And you gotta build that knowledge base up again. You gotta learn all over again from scratch. The kicker of it all is that you start forgetting everything that you just learned for the past 2 years, and you have to, at the same time, somehow juggle remembering everything you learned with learning all this new stuff and become efficient and learning how to manage your day-to-day. You go from studying for 8 to 10 hours a day to working 8 to 10 hours a day and trying to figure out how to fit in studying at the same time. When all you want to do is eat and go to sleep. So it almost feels like you're a little fish in a little pond, and then you become a big fish, but in an even bigger pond. And that cycle just repeats over and over again. And that's where it feels like it's never gonna end. Even going into residency, I know that this whole process is gonna start all over again. And on my very first day, I'm gonna feel like I don't know anything. And that's what I've been doing for the last 30 days. I've just been a masochist and been going, traveling 2 hours there and 2 hours back every single day, 4 hours a day of commute, just to do a rotation in a really cool psych hospital. So you might be asking yourself, Sean, why are you, if you're living in Brooklyn, why are you going to this rotation all the way in Paramus, New Jersey? And that actually brings up a really good point. When you're in your fourth year, you basically can choose whatever electives you want to do. You could have them all focus in the specialty that you want to practice in. I'm able to get some more experience in my field that I want to pursue. And then on top of that, I also get exposed to another hospital. That increases my chances of getting an interview at that place. But at the end of the day, it's totally worth it, because your job is to do whatever it takes to maximize the amount of interviews you get it. And that's what I'm doing. Yeah. And I'm actually very grateful for the position that I found myself to be in. I was doing consultation liaison in psychiatry for solely the detox unit. For me, that was priceless, and it was worth that little bit of extra pain. I was able to learn from an attending who, kind of opened my eyes to addiction management. For me, that was priceless. Medical school is not always pretty.
Oh, it's a dead rat. Oh, God. Oh, that was gross.
And that's why I always try to do my best to make sure I'm not glamorizing anything or trying to make it look better than it actually is, because a lot of the times med school is tough. It could push you very far. I've had times where I've cried in the middle of a library, just being so stressed out just because of tests and finals and exams and everything in between. Yeah, and I feel like the more honest I am about it and the less I try to glamorize everything, I'll be doing you guys a service, because you guys will be a little bit more prepared for what's to come when it's your turn. And when I look back at it now, I feel that this trade-off was totally worth it. I was able to meet attendings, and especially one attending who was so passionate about addiction management and treating his patients. That really hit home for me. That really spoke to me. And that's the one cool thing about medicine, when you're going through this, whether it's your basic science years or your clinical years, you start working with residents and attendings and you start paying more attention. Your focus kind of changes from, your head is always in a book, and now you're looking at how doctors actually act. How do they go about their day? How do they treat their patients? You could really learn a lot from these attendings, and you start picking up on qualities that you really like, and even obviously qualities that you don't like. This even came up in an interview of mine. Throughout your 2 years of clinical rotations, you really start picking up on things that you like about certain attendings, and you could start borrowing those qualities and kind of put it in like your own little toolbox and kind of build up this person of who you want to be in the future when it's your turn to practice and when it's your turn for you and only you to care for a patient. And I think that is where you get reminded of why you're doing this in the first place. You get reminded why you're sweating, or why you got blisters on your feet, or why your nipples are chafing because it's so cold outside that it reminds you why you do it in the first place. And I think that's the process of medicine. And I guess that's why we do it. Who knows, maybe this extra bit of pain that you go through will help you remember it better, and will help you remember these experiences that you have, and will just make you a better attending at the end of the day. Like they always say, the more pain you go through now, the better of a doctor you'll become. So yeah, maybe that's true.
If you don't record it, how will the world know that you got the vaccine?
Okay, so this is your second dose.
Okay.
And so I guess that takes me back to the home message, that med school is not always pretty. There will be long hours. There will be times you want to pull your hair out. I think that's part of the process. And I think that if you remind yourself why you're doing it, I don't know, maybe, hopefully, I guess if you try to be an optimist, like the pain that you're going through now will remind you of why you're doing it in the future. And you could proudly look back and say, yeah, I did that, You will cry in a library once in your life, I bet you. You might not have nipple chafing, but yeah. And I don't like to act like my life is together and everything's just going swimmingly in med school, because it's not. I've gotten B's, I've gotten C's, but I think it comes back to that point of we're all just looking at the finish line, and I guess that's what we're all working for. And yeah, I would love to show you what's going on in my actual day-to-day. I would, carry a camera with me the whole time. That would be like 20 HIPAA violations in like 10 seconds. So I'm sorry. Hopefully this B-roll could help you out. And that's me right there. Yeah, that's me. That's me right there. And I think the more you're aware of the uglier side of medicine, the more prepared you'll be at the end of the day.